My name is Nate. If we haven't met, I'm so glad you're here. This is breakout session, I don't know, for Milestone 4. Milestone 4 is designed around 9 to 11-year-olds. So you should have a 9 to 11-year-old in your life, or almost. We got them. Thanks. We have two things going around now. We have an outline and we have sticky notes. Please take at least one sticky note. 2 or 3 would be fine as well. And go ahead and do the first activity. Write down on the sticky note an issue related to having pre-adolescence. Okay? An issue. So something that is something that adolescents or pre-adolescents struggle with, or something that you as a parent or someone who's investing in the next generation, you kind of go, yikes, like look at what we're going to be dealing with over these next years. Put just one at a time, okay, just one on each sticky note. That's why you can, if you want to do more, use more than one sticky note. Once you get them, now this is where you're all going to have to really follow me here. We're going to use this whiteboard, and here's how we're going to use it. I want categories up here. So that means the first person that puts their sticky note up here can put it anywhere they want. But the second person has to look at what was here, and if yours is related, put it under it. If it's unrelated, put it next to it. Okay, so the idea is if you see something related, put yours under it. If you see it unrelated, put it next to it, and we'll have these columns of related issues. Okay, use your own judgment on how related. This is not like a science, so I don't really care how well. Yeah, you can start. It's easiest when you go first, and we're going to take some time, put as many up there as you want, because these are going to be our hot issues related to what we're talking about today. Okay. I'm going to put them on these chairs and Sharon over here. Handouts. Where'd the handouts end up? Over here. John has them over there. Just like force your way through the crowd. I love when people have to move. I don't know what that is about me. It just makes me feel good to see you all having to do something rather than just sit there. I remember years ago when I started in ministry, I was a junior high Sunday school teacher. And I kept on asking these questions and doing these activities to make all the students do something. And they would just stare at me. And I remember saying to them, like, come on, guys, like, what would you prefer to do? Like, have this be interactive where you guys are involved, or just sit there and listen to me talk? And they said, we just want to sit here and listen to you talk. I said, well, that's not because you think I'm interesting. That's because you'd fall asleep and not pay attention. He said, that's not an option for me. So I love to see people do stuff. And look at all those organizational minds there. Now, some really nerdy person probably is going to say, can we reorganize these? And I'm cool with that as well. Yeah, that's good. All right, everybody, if you haven't had a chance, make sure you put an issue up there that you think pre-adolescence is all about. Or it's the idea of what's coming next. I'm going to put one up there too that I remember distinctly having. Can I borrow your pen? Thank you. Look at that handwriting.
Nice, right?
Yeah. I think they're pretty good. I think they're pretty good. I think you can do better. So I'm going to read them. Not do better. There's no performance here, okay? I think we can go further. So I'm going to read the categories, and then I want to see if you can come up with some more, okay? So keep your sticky notes out, okay? Breakdown of relationship at home. That was mine. It was all about I believed this thing that a day was going to come where I could no longer have a relationship with my kids because they were adolescents. I had actually believed that. Like, it's impossible to have a relationship with adolescents. Totally a lie. Quiet. Explain that one? That they would be quiet, or?
Introvert.
That they get quiet.
They get quiet the whole time.
I'm going to put that under mine because I think those are probably the same thing. Parents know nothing. I like that one. Time of the month. So we could probably put some more things like that, like the pending or the upcoming bodily changes and all that. Fear of failure, self-identity, developing talents, having to be good at many things, pre-adolescent issues, girls like boys, relationships, sex, sexual, dating, sex, talking back, attitudes, hormones. I wonder if hormones should be under the sexual thing, but we can keep it there. New attitudes, changes, dealing with conflict, rebellion, self-image, kind of over there as well. Feeling accepted by peers. This is relationships among their peers. Bullying, fitting in, mean girls. This one says bad parents, parenting. Parents don't have biblical answers. Confident self-image. I'm just going to slide this in over here because I think it goes there. Pressure to experiment with drugs. Confusion about morality. I'm going to put that back over sex. Screens. That was the one that I was looking at. So it is there. So I'm going to give you a second. Is there anything else that you would want to add to this list? Screens. Drugs and substance abuse, those kinds of things. Social media, peers, this is in there as well. Actually, this is all very close, all about relationships, attitudes, hormones, rebellion, sexual confusion, dating, self-identity thing, body changes, parenting, I'm going to put that one up there. Parenting issues, breakdown of relationships in the home. Okay, I'll just give you a couple more minutes in case anybody has anything else they want to write down. We're looking for issues related to pre-adolescence. Feel free to write any down, put them on up there, okay? I'll look at my list. I've got some on my list that you don't have on yours. Any others? How about, it's related to this, but it's much broader. How many people have kids in public schools that they are quickly facing so much confusion related to issues of gender identity, sexual orientation? That's really not on our list. That's a pretty big issue.
Not my child, but I am a school counselor. And in the past couple of years, that has, there's no judgment, because
Right.
of course I can't approach it from that point of view. But we've had from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, kids who are transgendering.
Right?
Kids who are experimenting, and kids who are declaring.
Right.
At that point, they know that this is what their identity
Exactly.
is, or are heading you back.
Well, and not just at school, extended family, right? You go visit, uncle and uncle, or aunt and aunt. And it's just very, in our culture, more and more. So there's going to be so many questions about sexual orientation, gender confusion, things like that. Yeah. It's on TV, right? Right. Again, besides those, any others that you would want to throw out? I'll look down my list.
Something I didn't put down, but I see in our neighborhood, I see kids that are preteens that are getting recruited for drug issues.
So we do have right here about substance abuse, but we don't have anything here about gangs. And here in South Jersey, some gang-related things is going to be a reality, which would, I guess, come under peer pressure as well. Yeah. Anxiety and depression. Do we have that on there? Let's go ahead and put those on there, because I bet at the end some of you are going to take a snapshot of that. Feel free to any of these that we've said. If someone could put up there about anxiety and depression.
That's body changes, mental changes.
Separate issue? Okay. There was hormones, anxiety, depression, mental health. Let's put that other thing about sexual orientation and gender confusion. I guess it's here a bit. Gangs, recruitment. Suicidal thoughts. Let's put that under mental health if someone could have that. How about the whole self-harm? Jimmy, you were going to say something earlier?
And maybe it was said already, but I think it's at the stage that they're making the decision like a matters of faith, like, oh, wait a minute, is my parents' faith really my faith?
Yep, I think that's got to be up here as well. Can we put that as a different category? So personalizing their faith or rejecting their faith. Do we have anything here about science? I don't think we have anything up here about science, right? So like what they're being bombarded with in their school systems that is going to be repeatedly anti-God, repeatedly against you're a crazy person if you believe anything that the Bible says, which all of that is added together towards, is this faith going to be my faith? What my parents have taught or what they're teaching at church? Yeah. So we have bullying over here, and let's put anger here. So let's keep on taking notes here. So you were thinking about them acting out or acting on them? Yeah, either or. So the bullying is a big issue. Got anger here. Let's put violence as well. Anybody starting to feel anxious as we're looking at our list? Anxiety in parents. Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
And I think one thing that also, this is where they're also deciding if they're going to be egocentric, like if it's all going to be about me, or am I going to have a compassionate and social justice worldview?
Wow.
That's huge, because at this age, a lot of notes that I work at the same district, it's like, adolescents, this is about me,
Can we put that under the faith issues? That's really a worldview issue. Like, where am I in my world? So how self-centered I'm going to be, how much I'm going to look beyond myself.
Social media.
Yeah, social media, I think we have it a little bit, but and screens we have, but body image, do we have that anywhere? Body image, makeup. Am I beautiful? Am I ugly? Okay. Body definition, yeah.
Identity. I think all that just would fall under just identity in general.
Maybe under here, self-identity.
Yeah, like all that,
I had another one and it slipped me. Any others? Limitations on technology. Right, so we have screens here, but how about you put screens with parents don't know anything and anger, and you mix all that together, and you are going to tell them that you're going to limit their screen time, and all of a sudden now, which gets into peer relationships, and you're now cutting them off from the people that they want to interact with. That may not be a 9-year-old thing, but 11, 12, 13, it's coming up. How many of you have children that are 9, 10, 11 and they have their own cell phone? I didn't mean to shame anybody, I'm sorry. I should have said it the other way around, like, yeah, never mind, I'm sorry. I saw your hand go up and then I realized what a dumb question that was, so I will take all that shame onto myself, sorry.
You can blame it on your parents.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Yeah. That kind of goes along with Nancy. Things that that you or I experienced in 7th grade now are experienced younger. My kids got cell phones in college, and I wouldn't let them have them until college. It's because they went to college, and I wanted to be in contact with them. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I'll say that was my plan.
That was your plan? But you haven't been able to keep it?
No, I think everything has shifted so fast that you literally are cutting them off
Yeah.
from their peers.
Yeah.
In some manner, some way.
Yeah. Even like educational changes, like, and I'm not exactly sure how it is in all the schools around here, but isn't it true that often many of the elementary schools you have a homeroom, and there's this certain security of homeroom. Now you move into middle school, and you are classroom to classroom to classroom to classroom, and you are walking through these hallways with all of these people. That's a major shift for children to go through, and of course, that's where bullying starts to come into play. There's a safety in homeroom, and now you're moving into something else. Now, not all of us as parents experience that same reality, but that's a major shift for a lot of children, which brings in a lot of anxiety and many things that they're going to start to live. Yeah.
Now they have that responsibility on themselves, and can they handle it, or do they let their peers influence them?
So, classically the definition of an adolescent, right? We're talking pre-adolescence, but the reason we do this milestone is it's all about you're getting them ready for what's coming up. So the simple classical definition of an adolescence is someone who is they're in two worlds. They're both. They're still children, and they have these experiences of childlikeness, which you want to foster. And it triggered me with that responsibility. Yet increasingly, they're into an adult world with adult responsibilities and making adult decisions. And that entire period of adolescence, which sadly is going younger and younger. It used to be that adolescence would be more like a 13-year-old thing, and it's becoming a younger and younger thing. Let me give you one example. When does dating start now? Never. When you give them the smartphone, that's probably when dating starts. Like is that a term that the children would use? That's my boyfriend, that's my girlfriend, that's like we are somehow a couple. Isn't it true that in a general sense that's starting younger and younger and younger? A kindergarten girl can come home and say, that boy likes me. And that's probably been around forever in a certain sense, but it's really increasing of what that means. That's an adolescent reality that's being forced onto children more and more.
My son told me, he's in 3rd grade, that they have girlfriends when they're in 5th grade.
That's the rule. So you have to be in middle school? Oh.
Yes. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Says who? Yeah, because he's not interested, obviously.
Yeah.
He's in 5th grade.
Well, I'm glad he's not interested. All right, I'm skimming over my list. Any others? So mine was identity, gender confusion, sexual orientation, the whole relevance of God, public school view of God, intimidated by the increased influence of the world, body changes. Again, this is more into adolescence, but I was talking to my son Joel and we were talking about, I think it was 7th grade. So again, this is a little bit older than our time frame, but it's what adolescence is, what we're preparing for. And he was at Rossi Middle School, and I remember he was invited to a bat mitzvah. And so I was dropping him off for this bat mitzvah, and I was not prepared for what I thought would be these little girls that were going to be there. And they were decked out in prom and way too sexualized for little girls. And I was like, are you kidding? My son's going to go be at that event? Like, I had not prepared him for what he's going to be exposed to in 7th grade. This is way too much for what I had prepared him for. So again, that's that moving into a world where all of a sudden things are high charged. It's a reality. Technology, screens, social media, purity stuff, protecting, use of phones, when and boundaries for that, boundaries for screen time, when do you turn it off? What do I do with all these feelings and emotions that goes along with the hormone thing like this? Woo! Some families, this is what mine was about, some families have up until this point navigated a pretty good interaction between parents and children, and then all of a sudden you come into this stage of life where is that going to be threatened? Will I still like my parents? Will my parents still like me? How do I navigate relationships outside of our home? Changes, like we mentioned, in school, changing classes, hallway reality, dating, friends who are dating, the pressure that brings, pressures to fit in, which clique you're in. Do you remember lunchroom school? Like which table you're sitting at, and whew. Can we just pause and pray, all right? How do you guys feel about being involved in that generation? You feel excited about it, challenged by it, overwhelmed by it? Give me a little feedback of what it's like to be adults in the lives of that next generation that are facing those kinds of things.
I guess for myself, I feel kind of scared that although I can remember it, like it wasn't that long ago for myself, I just fear that I don't want to come off as, I want to be your friend through this, I want to be your parent, but I also don't want to step the boundaries of you can't talk to me about what you're going through because I'm your parent, but I want you to be able to talk to me like a friend. So it's like finding that balance of where's my role in this without being too much of a friend, without being too much of a parent. You want to be both so you're there to help them when you know they're going to feel like you're not there to help.
Yeah.
You're going to be their enemy going through this phase. It's scary.
Yeah. Can I just give one little point that Chris Laws, our youth pastor here, or was our youth pastor, is that still his title? I don't know if it is anymore. And I'm going to lean into you if you remember this. He gives a number of a ratio of how many adults need to be in the life of a child. Is it 5? Is that what he says? 5 to 1. Which outside of family, outside of mom and dad, which helps. So then it can, so you're not feeling all of that like, wow, I have to be the friend, and to outsource it that just a little bit. So that's why small groups, church, some sense of healthy community is so important that that child is involved in. Here, that's why summer ministry has been such a win for us, of kids getting involved with other people and developing some healthy relationships in that way. So, yeah, so thank you. Other, like, your impressions going into this stage. Yeah, Jim, and then over here, yeah.
So I have 5 kids. My youngest is 12. So I'm kind of on the back end of this particular talk. And I will just say that while each of my kids had to work through a handful of those issues, and as a parent I had to help them through a handful of those issues, not one of my kids had to go through all of that, you know. So there's a sense that just trust God's protective hand in this process. They're yours, in as much as you're both following Christ, they're under that covering that 1 Corinthians 7 talks about. There is protection. We don't have to be afraid, or else we fall into what some, you know, parenting by fear, which is going to only overcomplicate and make it all the worse. You know, just trust God on this. Yeah, you'll have to tackle a couple of these things, but we don't need to overprotect. We just have to walk alongside, keep that relationship strong, and those things that need to surface, I really believe will surface, either with you as a parent or among those 5, and it's going to be all right. You know?
My thought was the idea, you mentioned balance, but my thought was maybe balancing the thought that while there are, we do live in a world that is changing, and so their experiences are not going to be the same as ours. The world also still kind of stays the same. So, like, things that we did encounter are going to have relevance to them. We're not living, you know, the Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun, is the thing that comes to mind. So, like, we're still sort of, they're going through very similar experiences, hormonal and physical changes that have a little different spin because of the times we're living in, but, like, we can boil things down, they're still kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like, so we're trying to find that balance between being scared of what's new and changing and what seems to be changing, and you can still be scared of it or be concerned about it, but this is kind of another quality as well.
Sin is still sin. Humans are still humans. But Jesus is still Jesus, right? There is, you know what, the text says that as time moves on, sin will increase in intensity and love will diminish. So there is a sense that that does change as time moves on. So that is a reality, yeah.
My wife and I find it challenging to live in an urban environment in the United States when we haven't lived in an urban environment in the United States for many, many years and have grandchildren that are living in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yeah. So today what we want to talk about really is how to stay connected. If I was going to give you one word, I guess that's 2, right? As like your objective, how to stay connected. So I have 3 teaching points that I'd like us to discuss. So the first is around healthy, diligent communication patterns between parents and preteens are so important. If you want to be prepared when they're going to be adolescents, this is the time that you want to really shore up those healthy communication patterns or the culture of your home. We can talk about it. This is a place that we can talk about it. So my question for you that maybe we could dialogue a bit is both what are some challenges to healthy communication and what can parents do to foster healthy communication? Let's just kind of brainstorm on that. What have you found that's been helpful in terms of fostering healthy communication patterns, and what are some things that tend to break down healthy communication patterns? Say it again. Is going to help. can we just stay with that one for a bit? So listening, that's a huge thing. How does that work? And how does that work well? Listening well.
I would say for my girls, they're at different ages, but you have to listen to each one individually, not have like a family talk, because they're at different levels and they frustrate each other. You know, so you almost have to have like one-on-one time so that they can really express themselves without the criticism of the other sibling.
Yeah. Would you agree with that, Cher?
It's such a blessing to have someone, even for us, to have one person listen to us and really listen. So for a child to have a space just with the parent, it takes away the other competition and the other rivalry.
I don't know what your family is like, but I never felt my family was safe. If I said something, wow. What's the one thing, plead the fifth? I always wanted to plead the fifth because anything I said could and would be used against me in any court, like at any time. So I wouldn't want to say anything in front of my brothers. So if anybody was going to listen to me, they were probably going to have to do it alone because I wasn't going to say anything in front of my brothers. It was an unsafe environment. That's sad. I mean, I wouldn't want that. But I look at my grandchildren, and I don't think that they necessarily feel safe in front of each other. I think that's just human. That's a powerful person. Your sibling's a powerful person in your life. If they make fun of you, that's powerful. It's not easy to say, I don't care what Sissy says. Everybody does. That's your sister, that's your brother. So the isolation, the one-on-one. How did you used to do that, Cher? How would you do it?
Well, I 2 different times Nate went away for 7 weeks at a time when we were missionaries, and they had to go on tour. And I learned the blessing of putting them to bed. I gave each one a half hour because he wasn't there, so I was doing it on my own, and it just didn't work to have all 3 of them at the same time. So just like a bedtime, knowing we're going to have that half hour together. You can't always do that, but that was one way. I think car time when you just have one is a good spot.
Another thing that was really helpful for me is that I think that every child, and I think this is the same for adults, I think everybody has a access point into their heart. And as parents, as best as we can become experts at knowing that access point. That access point usually is a place, right? So sometimes it's bed. I think it's a time. Sometimes evening work, sometimes it doesn't. I think Sharon often found right after school was such a pivotal time for those children. So there's a place, there's a time, and I think there's an approach. The direct approach doesn't always work with honestly, if I sat in front of you and I just peppered you with questions, not everybody in this room would feel very comfortable with that. Some of you would just thrive under that, like, tell me more. But some of you would, every question I ask you, you'd just kind of go, you'd recoil, right? And it's okay. It's just part of what it means to be more extroverted or introverted. And God has a design on everybody. Totally cool. So we should know that about our kids. So you've probably heard this story. My son Joel was the one who probably was the hardest for me to get into his heart. And so he needed time. He needed time. So my pattern with him would be to lay in bed next to him. And sometimes I would lay there for 20 minutes in silence. And that was important for him. The truth is, Joel's still the same way. If I go in, because I'm kind of a guy, Joel's not that kind of person. And if I go in with strength, Joel will just shut down. To this day, I love my son. So I do it on his terms. So learning to access the heart of your child, become an expert at that. Anything else that you found helps, doesn't help? Yeah.
I just think that with the listening, a lot of times our kids will come to us with things that we're like, that's so not important. You know, like
Wow.
what's important to them is
Wow.
not necessarily important to us, especially when we're making dinner or whatever. You know, Lottie brought up something last night, and I said, we need to set a time to talk about this
And always keep in mind there's a presenting issue and often there's something a deeper issue. And so often they will come with the presenting issue. And if you shut them down on the presenting issue, you don't get to get into the deeper issue. All right, just take just a couple seconds. And I just want you to think about this. Think of a person who listens to you well, and what do? What does it mean for you to be heard? Do you have anybody that you say, wow, that person gets me? They listen to me. And I love to talk to them. I love to bare my soul to them. Do you have anybody in your life like that? Can you just, we're gonna answer, but I just want everybody to have a chance to think about it. What do they do? Are you ready? Can we brainstorm this? Let's go real fast. What do they do?
He listens without an agenda.
It's hard to do as a parent.
Active listening.
What does that mean?
They're participating. They ask the question, like if they tell me how they feel, I ask them why do they feel that way. It's not just sitting there with a stone face and hearing everything, but you got to hear what they're saying and respond.
Interact with it.
Interact and be a participant in the listening, without giving your agenda or your opinion or.
Excellent.
You're just getting more definition.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's like, I know I have your full attention, and like, no matter what I'm throwing at you right now, you're not judging me, you're not angry at me, you're just looking at me with love, and just want to hear.
Yeah. Good.
I was just say undivided attention, actually face to face. You're looking at me. I'm guilty of it every time with my wife when she wants to talk to me, and I'm like into it, and then I go, squirrel, you know, and it gets her. Like, forget it.
I'm telling you, I don't know if you're like this, but if I'm sharing something from my heart and if you look away from me, I will stop talking. Because what I'm usually sharing is vulnerable, not when I preach. But I don't know if you ever notice when I preach, I usually preach to the people that are looking to me because it's a conversation. And if they're not listening, I don't think I want to talk to them because I'm sharing my soul. So anybody else? That was a little vulnerable there. Yeah.
They'll let you feel that emotion.
Yeah.
And then that helps you actually work through it instead of you bottling it in. Because I grew up where I wasn't supposed to
Right.
show my emotions. I was supposed to just be happy and there.
Yeah.
The people who help me the most are the ones who listen to me, let me be emotional, and then I can pull back
Yeah.
and reorient myself to where I need to go.
Yeah.
My friend cares.
She cares.
She's not just asking me how you're doing. That's how you're doing.
Did you notice the emotion that you... Yeah, it's a gift, isn't it? Yeah.
They're not trying to fix me.
Yeah.
They're not like, you can tell when you're talking to somebody if they're trying to, like, okay, what advice can I give this person? What can I tell them to do for this so that we can move on from this issue? Just listening and being like, that sucks.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to be fixed, just listen to me.
Not only looking in the eye, but they'll take your hand or they'll put
Wow.
their hand on you.
So, yeah.
Also, like, when you're talking, they're not trying to think of how they can respond
Yeah.
or what the next thing how that affected them or like their next thought. It's more about
So in marriages, you know, one of the higher the level of conflict in your marriage, sometimes you have to do stupid skills. So, you know, stupid practices, and everybody says this is stupid, but you do it anyway because. So have you ever done the pass the baton thing? So the pass baton thing is whoever has it gets to talk, and then you just do that. They can say whatever they want. I'm not thinking about anything. I don't have to make a list. I'm not thinking about my rebuttal. It's your turn, and you can talk as long as you want. And then when you're done, now it's my turn, and you can't interrupt. And could you imagine doing that with your kids over certain issues or at certain times or at certain seasons? It'd be a great gift. Sharon and I, at one of the most difficult times of our marriage, felt like we were breaking down over this issue because our son Joel was hurting severely, and I couldn't be okay with her emotions because I was trying to keep my head above the water, and I needed her to be strong. So every time she would share with me what she was going through, I was in one way or another just saying, you can't feel that way. Basically, I was saying, man up, girl, come on. Which, like, that's not very nice. It broke for me when she stopped talking to me and I heard her calling other people to talk to, and the flags went off for me like, uh-oh, I'm losing the relationship. And so that's what we did. We did the stupid thing. But it saved our marriage, I think. You think so? What do you think?
Give her the baton.
My son Caleb has these 4 things he calls the 4 foundations to the 4 foundations. I like them a lot. So here they are. Parents, have fun. I think most kids are wired to have fun. And fun is their own way to have fun. Like, not every kid has fun. So it can't be like, have fun on my terms, have fun on their terms. So in a fun environment. The second is parents lead, children follow. So it's not always, I think, Margaret, what you did, that's still leadership, right? Lottie wanted to talk about something, and Margaret responded, honey, that's really important to me. My guess is you probably even looked at her. Honey, that's really important to me, and I want to lead you into that, and we're going to do that at a different time. We're going to have to find a good time to talk about that, and there's something I need to do right now. That's totally okay. That's still, it's leading, and it's actually, that brings security to the child, particularly when you follow through. Right? When your word is reliable and she knows tonight, not a week from now, tonight soon, you have that time to do that. Third one is what's felt on the inside gets talked about on the outside. Did you notice what I did with Jessie earlier? I couldn't help but notice when she got emotional. Did you see the first thing I did with it? We talked about it. I can't help, if I see somebody's emotions, I can't help but talk about it. What's on the inside gets talked about on the outside. So if someone's angry, you say, I'm kind of thinking you're probably angry. You don't laugh, but I mean, I'm just like, as odd as that sounds, what's on the inside gets talked about on the outside. That's called emotional maturity, when you can put words to the emotions that a person's having. So what's on the inside gets talked about on the outside. And the last one is the gospel is for everything. The gospel is for everything. So Caleb, I'm sure, would love to talk to you more about that, but when my wife developed the 4 foundations, and then Caleb said, really, there's something more foundational than those 4 foundations, which is prayer, the word, mission, and faith talks. Like, there's something more foundational. He says these are more foundational. Fun, parents lead, children follow. What's on the inside gets talked about on the outside, and the gospel for everything. I think those are the kinds of environments that you can, with intentionality, drill into. So I want you to take just a couple minutes, turn to somebody, and of what we've talked about so far, can you highlight something that stands out that you say, I think that needs more attention in my life or in our home? That needs more attention. Like, in some way, circle it, underline it, write it. This needs more attention. And can you consider a step that you would like to take towards that? Okay? You can either do that on your own if you would prefer, or you can talk to somebody about that. Okay? Something that stands out so far in you, and a step you'd like to take.
Can you repeat that?
Of what we've talked about so far?
Yeah, just now, the 2.
Mm-hmm.
You said
Yep.
1 and 2.
What stands out, and a step that you'd like to take? You're going to have about 3 minutes. So what stands out, what you're going to do? It's easy to.
Something I've learned in ministry.
Share. Okay, we're going to transition to the second section, which is healthy communication about body changes and life changes. Have any of you ever heard of Dana Gresh? So, Dana Gresh is an official worker of the Christian Missionary Alliance, and I sign her license. Which is crazy. She's like, I moved to Eastern Pennsylvania, and on the first day I met her. Sharon knew her well because she's ever heard of Focus on the Family? You know, what was the Jim Dobson organization? Of the top 4 authors in that whole organization, she's the only woman. So of the Christian Missionary Alliance, by far, she's the most published author in the Christian Missionary Alliance, Dana Gresh. Anyway, Dana has her whole ministry around, is it this age? And her husband. This age and a little bit older? Pretty much this age group. So we just wanted to show you some of her books. She does events and teaching to raise awareness and then help people take steps, mostly towards purity. Secret keeping is what she calls it. So 6 ways to keep the good in your boy. There's 6 ways to keep the good in your girl. I think she started all around girls, and then she's gone out into boys as well. Anything else you want to say about that?
Just up through, it's all through high school as well.
Yeah.
One of the books that I heard a lot was The Bride Wore White. So, and it just has studies, so this is more the younger stuff that she's written. And then her husband's doing that for boys. But you can go to the website and see some of the things that are available just for research.
They're fun conferences. I'd actually even recommend it for this church, if you guys ever had one, to have a Dana Greshner team come in, do it regionally, because they're big events. I don't even know if this building would be big enough for it, because they're usually rather large events. Many people get involved, but it's a lot of fun, good teaching. So that's all we're going to say about that. And then I passed around the resource list. So many resources. So the one thing I just want to recommend to you is take Preparing for, which is the next milestone. So if you could do that next year, which is all about helping your child prepare for adolescence. But this would be start to get your head in the game related to it. If you haven't already had children, move into that. I've been talking to my sons about what's the difference between what they're going to do with their children than what I did with them. And their big thing is we're going to start younger. So I did kind of like a 5-year-old thing, a 10-year-old thing, a 13, 14, 15, 16. That was the intentionality that we did. And they said, good, but younger. So that 10-year-old thing, which was really the big exposure of a lot of things, they're doing that much younger. So more like 8. Now, I'm not saying that the way that they're doing it is the right way to do it, but you just need to think, when are you having big conversations about sexual matters? So much is about what are the other exposure in their life, right? Who do you want them to hear this stuff from? And the answer is only you guys first, right? They're going to hear all of this from mom and dad. And I would say that from mom and dad, that you can both find your way that you can be involved in this conversation. Or, again, could be grandparents. It could be, I wouldn't step in as grandparents into that one. I would only do it if there's a complete vacuum. In my case, we will never step into that one because there's no vacuum there. Okay. Any questions about that? Big, big important thing. I just wanted to touch on that. I would relate it as well to the emotions thing that we had talked about earlier. Just learn to feel comfortable to talk about anything related to body, anything related to physiology, anything related to sex. How many of you already feel like you're there? Like, I can talk about any of that stuff really easily. Good. Good. So, I hope I'm not recording. Stand in front of a mirror. I'm going to say it anyway. Stand in front of a mirror, look yourself in the face and say, penis, 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 penis. Vagina, 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 vagina. Until you can just, if you cannot have a comfortable conversation with your face not getting red about body parts, you're swimming upstream. So learn to do it. I had to learn to do that as a pastor because I thought if the church cannot talk about sex, wow, are we in trouble? Because everybody else is talking about it and giving wrong information. So we have got to be able to talk about this. So as parents, make sure that you can talk about that, okay? Even if you're a married couple, even your sexual relationship is all about you being able to talk about sex freely. So that's probably where you start is, can we have a conversation about this matter? And if you can't, probably you're in trouble because it's going to be really hard for you to talk with your kids about something that is what do you call it? Like a taboo in your home. Okay? All right. Let's go to the last one. Main teaching point, other. I want to talk a little bit about discipline for this age. Appropriate discipline for 9 to 11-year-olds. So you got this big paddle, right, that's in your back room, and you pull it out and you whack them, right? No, you don't. Yeah. That's not appropriate for this age. So any form of that your primary tool is your strength and power, that's not for this age. I still am old-fashioned enough, I'd call it biblical enough, that I think that is appropriate at a certain age. I think that's more like a 3-year-old age, done very appropriately in ways that are not damaging to that child, in ways that are life-giving for that child. But that needs to be done early on. So that's not a big part of what they're saying. My dad used to hit me. I don't think my sons have memories of me spanking them, but I would spank my children, but not at 9 years old. Okay? So, still your big tool in discipline is consequences. And if you've been around here, you know that that's the big, I know it's behavioral modification, but until their heart is changed, we do work with behavioral modification to create some sense of safety in the home so that things are not wild and crazy. There is a level of behavioral modification as we're engaging the heart of our child. Okay? And consequences probably are the simplest, easiest way. So by consequence, I mean this behavior, the natural outcome of that behavior is that consequence. As a parent, I help them understand what that consequence is, and I lead them towards it. So, for example, lying. What is the natural outcome of lying? Broken trust. What could be a natural consequence that could be given to a child that would demonstrate broken trust?
Can't go out with your friends.
So that would be usually certain kind of limitations on them, because being outside of mom and dad's presence requires trust. Trust has been broken. We need to bring back your presence into what we can observe, because trust has been broken. But that needs to be articulated pretty clearly, that they are able to understand the consequences as related to the behavior. Now, let me say two things about that. Without giving them the impression that your love is dependent on their behavior, because that's going to be counterculture to the gospel. What you're saying to them is, I would prefer that by the work of the Holy Spirit, this is a little heady for a 9-year-old, but translate it, okay? I would prefer that by the work of the Holy Spirit, you would have a want to in your heart to follow me. That would be what Jesus would desire, and I would prefer that. Until that time comes, and for which I will pray, I will bring consequences in your life so that you can understand when you live outside of authority, life will never go well for you. And I'm not going to participate in your destruction. It's pretty intense. I'm kind of an intense guy, okay? But that's basically what I would say to my kids. Like, guys, it's not going to go well for you. So you ever remember the circle of blessing? Like, you move outside the circle of blessing, you will die. You will die. So I'm going to show you what life looks like outside the circle of blessing, because you're going to find my powers not for you. My power is against you. In the same way that you move outside of God's blessing, you don't get to experience God's power for you. You experience God's power against you. My child, come back in. That's an appropriate invitation, friends. That's not inappropriate. Anything else you want to say about that? Any?
It's just, we always want to communicate, I'm doing this for your good because I love you. These are why the consequences, not that I'm upset or mad, which is hard to do sometimes.
I think we're going to have to be done. I'll just say a couple things real quick. Key in big on responsibilities. At this age, that's an other. Remember, adolescence is the in-between. Childhood typically has little responsibility. Mature adulthood handles responsibility well. Adolescence would be the time where they're growing and shouldering responsibilities well. No one will know how to do that unless they're taught how. We have to train our kids in how to do responsibilities. So you give them a responsibility. I would make up these stupid little things like how to make their bed. And I'd walk into their room and I'd say, yeah, guys, I want you to make your bed. And they'd say, yeah, Dad, I did. And I'd look at it and I'd say, yeah, that's not really a made bed. And they'd say, well, yeah, it was made. Like, the covers are on top of the bed. So I said, smooth on the top, even on the side. I just make things up like that. I said, when the bed is made, it's smooth on the top and it's even on the side. They can still remember that. Or I sent Caleb out to do we had this little garden thing that weeds would grow in it, and we had some plants in there, and his job was to keep the weeds out and to keep the plants alive by watering it. And so I said, that's your job. And it kept on having weeds in it and kept on dying. And I say, well, Caleb, that's not going so well for you, that responsibility. He'd say, no, like I'm doing it. And I say, no, clean and green. You got it? If it's clean of weeds and if the plants are green, you got it, man.